Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Roundabout Sports, presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you for joining us this lovely Wednesday evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the maestro, Jeremy Carpenter. Alongside me is one proud Illini fan and one exhausted insider, and that is the one, the only Hollywood of Christmas past, James Knox.
Good evening, Jeremy. How are we doing?
I'm doing all right, James. How are you?
Good. Exhausted is a good word. And, very happy, though, insider-wise, that the Cardinals were able to get something done with Wilson Contreras earlier today.
Oh, absolutely. There is so much to talk about. And honestly, we are going to be kicking things off with a lot of baseball talk here. There's so many transactions that have gone on today and yesterday. A lot of rumors still circulating as far as who's going where. But the big news that is going to be breaking out is the fact that the Cardinals have their replacement for Yadier Molina, and it is not Andrew Kisner. They had signed Wilson Contreras up from previously the Chicago Cubs to a 5-year, $87.5 million deal, which is the largest financial deal in Cardinals history among players who had not previously played for the organization. Interesting enough, the one before that was also a Cub, Dexter Fowler. At $82.5 million, which, that contract worked well. Nevertheless, there's also so many other news we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about a lot of news in the NFL that's going on, especially over this past week. I will say there's the old saying that one man's trash is another man's treasure. What do you say when one team's trash goes to another team to become trash? Because that's kind of what Baker Mayfield did when he went from the Panthers to the Rams.
Well, from the Browns to the Panthers to the Rams. They started with you. I guess they'll end with me. The only thing I can say is, as creative as Sean McVay is, maybe he can, maybe it'll work out where Baker can at least have a productive rest of this season. I mean, the Rams season obviously lost and marred by injuries. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an NFL season or a team go through what they've gone through injury-wise, with Stafford's on IR, Cooper Kupp's on IR, Aaron Donald is out right now, A'Shaun Robinson's on IR, Allen Robinson, the receiver, he's on IR. I mean, you have more salary that is on IR than what you have in your starting lineup. So, but a lot of us Rams fans will gladly sacrifice this season for what was the roller coaster ending in a Super Bowl championship last year. But yeah, Baker Mayfield, maybe this is a resurrection project for Sean McVay. Certainly, they actually sent him the playbook as he was flying to LA. And he very well may be active tomorrow night against the Raiders. So it'll be interesting. I don't put a whole lot of stock in it. If he can help us win a couple games down the stretch and maybe be a spoiler to Seattle or another team in the division, that's great. I just want to see the other young guys on this team kind of grow and see what you have for the future.
Without a doubt. And, Baker Mayfield, a talented quarterback that has just been, you know what? I think I know why he's the perfect fit for the Rams, because he has also been marred by injuries the past couple of years. So it kind of just fits. But it's unfortunate because he's shown what talent he does have. But on top of that, and I know later on, you got quite a few things you want to say in regards to our lovely St. Louis Blues. Even though they won last night, 7-4, you had spoken to me, and it was not a pleasant win, I will say that.
Yeah, you look at a team that they win the first 3 to open the season, then they lose 8 in a row, then they win 7 in a row, and then you lose 5 of 6. And yeah, it was great to get a win last night, but we have to quit, and I'd say the Blues have to quit giving up 40 shots a goal. Our goaltenders have been hung out to dry. The defense has been at times. I think Parayko and Mikkola are probably better off as drill cones and pylons than they are defensemen. It's tough. I mean, we've had this roster has way too much talent on it to play as bad as they are. And while they're not by far out of the realm of possibility of making the playoffs, you've got to quit putting yourself in a hole to where you have to win 4 or 5 in a row to get back into a position. I thought that maybe after the Rangers game the other night, in which they allowed 3 goals in the third period and blew another lead, that somebody should get fired. For the longest time, I love Craig Berube as a head coach, but at some point in time, even the best coaches in any sport, they lose the ear of their locker room, and sometimes a change needs to be made, and something has to give before 2019 becomes too far of a distant memory for that organization.
Without a doubt. And I know you have thoughts that you're going to express a little more emotionally later on in the show. But first, let's backtrack to, by the way, folks, you can find us on YouTube at Interstate 70 Sports Media. Please be sure to subscribe. A lot of great content out there. You find episodes of The Strike Zone, Talking Dynasty, Roundabout Sports. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter. I mean, we are expanding, folks. And be sure to check us out at interstate70sports.media. And website just went through a whole revamp, and I tell you, it is looking nice. So you definitely want to check that out for all the latest content and articles in the state of Missouri and beyond. With that, there's so much news we have to discuss when it comes to Major League Baseball and transactions, and so many have happened over the course of the day. I think one of the first big ones from today definitely had to be Aaron Judge coming back to the New York Yankees. Now, we've discussed this on previous shows where Aaron Judge, we had talked about last week actually, how the San Francisco Giants had the money, the resources, and the drive to pursue Aaron Judge and hopefully sign the slugger, who, props to him, man. He bet on himself, and it paid off immensely. That said, the Yankees, who, he originally declined an offer from, he goes out there, signs a 9-year deal, $360 million. This is going to take him to his age 39 season. And I'm just going to be honest, if he's still about 270 pounds then, he will be just the second player age 39 or older and 270 or higher to hit a home run. The other, Bartolo Colon.
Boy, that's a statistic, right? My goodness.
Love it. Gotta love Big Sexy. So, James, what are your thoughts on the fact that the Yankees got their slugger back and haven't really seemed to take much of a hit because, it's the New York Yankees, up $360 million is chump change to them. I mean, this guy's making $40 million a year. Biggest contract by any position player in MLB history as far as AAV.
So, it's funny because initially, before this deal got done today, okay, obviously we know that Aaron Judge had visited San Francisco. His family is from there. So initially the reported deal from the Yankees was 8 years, $320 million. And the deal that he did sign with New York was the extra year and another 40 mil was actually brought to the table by the Giants. The Giants are the ones that went 9 years, 360. And it was reported that Aaron Judge and his agent took that number back to the Yankees, said, hey, guys, look, I really want to stay here. I want to be a Yankee for my career, but I'm being offered more money. Look, I mean, and nobody can blame Aaron Judge for getting what he's worth. I mean, we would all do it for the right price. So he goes back to the Yankees. Hal Steinbrenner gets involved, and they made it happen. And by God, I'm glad that he went back to the Yankees. Nothing like getting that news at 5:00 in the morning, because this was a deal. And you and I had talked last night that at that point in time, the Giants were the front runner to sign him. I mean, right. Look, that's what it was. That's what it came down to. And I stayed on that beat as long as I could until my eyes got so heavy. My eyes were crossing on that last night. And I was like, look, at some point in time, we're going to see what's going on here. But, Brian Cashman said that Hal Steinbrenner was the quote-unquote Mariano Rivera of the Aaron Judge deal in the ability to close it out. And, I don't know if he necessarily threw him a cutter and got him to swing and miss, but we look at it, and Aaron Judge needed to stay a Yankee. And the reason I say this is that is an organization that has built statues for Babe Ruth, for Mickey Mantle, for Lou Gehrig. We all know about the statues that they have out in Monument Park.
Yep.
You know, this is the kind of thing that us Cardinals fans loves, right? We loved it when Yachty spent his whole career with us. The fact that Adam Wainwright, for all intents and purposes, he's been a Cardinal for his entire career. So I think this is good for baseball. You see that he put away going home to his family, going to the West Coast, going and signing with San Francisco, and he wanted to stay true to what he felt. And it's a great deal for the Yankees, obviously. And apparently they're not done. They're still out there looking at Rodon. Of course, he's a free agent from San Francisco, oddly enough. And so they've got their hands in a couple other deals. And I expect, it's funny, and you and I have talked about this on our show last week and the week before, that this was going to be where the hot stove really got hot, and that was at the winter meetings. And apparently the Yankees they have their hands in a lot of things. Obviously, other teams like the Mets, they do as well. And I was getting ready to address that from Eddie. Yeah, the Cardinals are now in the Dansby Swanson sweepstakes. So if you thought that they were done, and I know that I've heard, it's almost like the grinding and gnashing of teeth today. It's like, oh, well, that's great that we got Wilson Contreras. What's next? Or people that are unhappy with the Wilson Contreras deal. Well, he's no Yadier Molina. Stop right there. There's not a catcher you could sign. There's not a catcher in the world that is going to remind you of Yadier Molina when he steps behind the plate or even to the plate. But we upgraded offensively. Wilson Contreras has a cannon for an arm. And offensively last year from the catching position, we didn't get anything. If you got anything from it, it was a bonus. Be happy about the deal. Mo and them, they spent the money. And, back to Eddie's point, I've heard them linked to Dansby Swanson. And there are some other pitchers that they're linked to. The newest one came out in the last 45 minutes. As I was talking to sources, no, I will not reveal them. But as Jeremy can attest, the sources that we told last night, we knew the Wilson Contreras deal was coming. They are also being linked to Noah Syndergaard. So that's there's you another arm because, you lost Santana to the Mets today. He had such a good year last year, he outpriced the Cardinals. So just know that don't be surprised if you don't see another deal come out either, in the next couple of days or over the weekend.
And I think that one of the biggest things, and before we go back to everything regarding Aaron Judge, is the fact that, yes, the Cardinals are one of the teams big on the Dansby Swanson sweepstakes. And, a big thought in this offseason was, would they get either Contreras or Swanson? Well, now the possibility's out there that you get both, or the possibility you get Syndergaard, which with Quintana going to the Mets, big loss right there, especially, since Steven Matz hasn't really panned out so far. But, Aaron Judge currently has the third biggest overall contract in Major League Baseball. Behind second place is Mookie Betts with a 12-year, $365 million contract. And then we all know the biggest one, and that's Mike Trout's just gargantuous contract he signed in 2019 for 12 years, $426.5 million. Chump change. But meanwhile, that team can afford it, yet they decided, look, we'll have one of the greatest players in modern baseball history, but screw getting pitchers. At least we got one spot in the lineup that'll make sure to score us runs, but everything else, no, we're not going to be able to get anything going. So the big thing, and then and it's funny because meanwhile you have the biggest contract in the NHL, which is Shea Weber, 14 years, $110 million from the Vegas Golden Knights. So you look at just how it is, and hell, I have to throw it out there. You got Mahomes. And
That's nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure.
right, 10 years, 450 million with 141 of that guaranteed. So, and we got Parker tuning in. I know he's got a question in regards to two of the Cardinals who were off and on this team this past season about Matthew Liebertor and Zach Thompson. So say they get so James, I'll ask you this: say they now that Quintana signed with the Mets. So we already talked about Aaron Judge, but say Quintana, since he's gone, say the Cardinals get Syndergaard or they make a trade with Cleveland, they get another starting pitcher.
They've been linked to Shane Bieber as well.
Shane Bieber, which, for Cleveland. So what would happen to either or both Liebertor and Thompson?
Zach Thompson becomes a bullpen piece, and Matthew Liberatore, if I'm being honest with you, I'm using his trade as a trade piece. Certainly, Liberatore struggled. The lefty has a high ceiling, a lot of potential there. You obviously remember that he was the integral part of the Randy Arozarena trade that the Cardinals got back from Tampa. Liberatore, look, I know that there are a lot of people that are high on him. I use him as a trade piece somewhere. Zach Thompson, I'm keeping in the bullpen. I mean, we saw that he is electric. He's left-handed. He throws hard. And here's the other thing you have to look at. Okay, and I don't know if we've talked about this on the show or not. So other than, Michaelis, Montgomery, Wainwright are all free agents after this year. Okay. So right now you only have one starter that is going to be under contract after this season. So you have to go out and get another starter. That's why there was a lot of smoke and fire around somebody like a Carlos Rodon, because, he is a high swing and miss, a high strikeout, high K ratio. I see, and I like Zach Plesac, and apparently the Guardians. Did I say the Indians? I think I said the Indians earlier. The Guardians have come out and said that they're willing to deal him and to trade him. Thompson definitely belongs on the big league club. He's got electric stuff. I like him. He's left-handed. That certainly helps there. I think he could be a real good complement piece to Ryan Helsley. Liberatore, on the other hand, he needs to develop some more. And right now, the Cardinals window with Goldie, Arenado, and now you add Wilson Contreras, and I can't even say that without smiling. You add that player there, that window to win a World Series is going to close, and it's going to close faster than what we all realize, just simply because guess what? Again, Father Time is undefeated. Jack Flaherty's the other pitcher that I think he has arbitration rights after this year. Where does Gorman figure into the equation? I might trade him too. I mean, Gorman doesn't have a certain position on this team. Like if you're going around the horn, you're going Arenado, Edman, Brendan Donovan, Paul Goldschmidt, Contreras behind the plate, and then O'Neill, Carlson, and Nootbaar/Walker. I mean, you could try Gorman at a corner outfield position, but the problem is he is
Wouldn't you want him as depth on the infield, though? I mean, do you think that's what the Cardinals are looking more towards? Because obviously they're not going to put him over Tommy Edman anytime soon, because Edman is the bona fide starter.
Right. But here's the thing. If you really are involved in this Dansby-Swanson talk, then you put Swanson at short, Edman at second, Brendan Donovan becomes your infield depth with, we've got other guys down there as well. And here's the thing, it was kind of volleyed about that they could go out and get a left-handed bat or somebody in the outfield. And I was kind of big on Cody Bellinger. Obviously, Bellinger signs a 1-year, $17.5 million prove-it deal with the Chicago Cubs. I don't know. I mean, I guess, but the problem is, then there you go. I mean, Mock's all over it with Liberatore. But the thing with Gorman is you have that. If you want swing and miss with huge upside and a lot of power, don't look any further than Tyler O'Neill. The only difference is that Nolan is left-handed. Well, I mean, so do you move O'Neill to center because he's fast enough to play there and you look at dealing Dylan Carlson? Or do you go out and maybe take a flyer or try to trade with the Pirates? You can get Brian Reynolds. Because if I'm the Cardinals, and you're always worried about trading in the division because you're worried about that player that you trade coming back and biting you in the ass. We've seen it numerous times with other teams that have done this. I'm not worried about the Pirates challenging me in the division for a very long time, if at all. And, the only thing is, and I know there are a lot of people that feel the same way as Eddie, who just, commented and said, trade Tyler O'Neill. The problem with that is I'm afraid because he really is a 5-tool player. Well, he's a 4-tool player. He doesn't really have a strong arm. But I got to keep telling myself that somewhere he didn't forget how to play the game, that somewhere there's a 2021 version of Tyler O'Neill there. But, it's hard, but you're going to have to clear out a path for a guy like Jordan Walker. And I know you don't want to go long-term with a shortstop because you're worried about, being able to block Mason Wynn. These are all hyped up prospects. We've talked about this before. I feel the Cardinals overvalue their prospect. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get the player who has proven it and can do it and is a proven commodity instead of, what if.
Well, then you got the outfield situation for the Cardinals is what I really look at here. And, and here's an interesting take I want to definitely delve into in just a second about what Mock thinks about Sanders.
I like it. I like him more too, but the problem is Xander's going to cost more money.
Right. And honestly, to get $87.5 million for Contreras was a hell of a deal. And I don't think people realize
I thought
how
we were
much.
I thought it was at least going to be $100 million to sign him.
Right. And that's the thing.
Under
17, right. And under 17.5. So the Cardinals are paying less per year for Contreras than what the Cubs paid for 1 year of Bellinger. Like I said, before I get into Parker's comment, I want to talk about the outfield for a second because the potential starting outfield, and yes, Eddie's right. I felt it was a steal as well getting Contreras.
One more thing on that.
You have Lars Nootbaar, you would have Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson.
Yep.
Based on who's leaving, based on who's currently on the team, and the thing of it is, I mean, look, say you got Swanson. You got an infield that's Goldschmidt, Edman, Swanson, and Arenado.
All gold gloves.
All gold gloves, top infield in the league. Even and then you got Contreras behind the plate. And even if you don't have Swanson, you get a guy like Donovan out there, who's shown his versatility in the infield.
Gold glover.
I mean, another gold glover. I mean, but I think it brings up the question. God, there are so many gold glovers.
Do you see a theme here?
But this brings up the question: what, in your opinion, was the weakest spot on the field? The outfield. And because the injuries were piling up. Dickerson made too many bad adjustments. Bader, once he got hurt, it was over. I mean, literally, once he got out, he never came back. O'Neill was very off and on. To me, the best outfielder on the Cardinals was either Nootbaar or Carlson.
I would say Nootbaar. Nootbaar by far.
Nootbaar.
Because Carlson couldn't hit right-handers. I mean, he had no pop from the left side. Look, we could.
Well, I mean,
say
just from the perspective of the fielding. I mean, definitely. As far as lineup goes, give me Nootbaar over Carlson in the starting lineup. And yeah, exactly, right there. It speaks volumes. But I just think the Cardinals right now, obviously they're going to want to address issues in pitching, but now they also got to start addressing, what are they going to do with their outfield, because not only is it very young, but it's very thin. And I like Eddie's comment right here. Center field is, I feel, the weakest because Newt can't play all three spots.
Newt is good in center. Tyler O'Neill has shown that he's good in center. Dylan Carlson is okay. I mean, but I'd say okay is fine. He does not have a very strong arm. Lars Nootbaar has shown that he's got a damn cannon. It's tough because, like, I could sit here and tell you that, center field's the weakest, but I think Dylan showed at times that he doesn't get very good breaks on balls that are hit. And, of course, then he comes out and he makes a Jim Edmonds-esque kind of defensive play in center field. But the Cardinals lost a ton when they traded Harrison Bader, in regards to their outfield defense. I guess in terms of position and how much ground you have to cover, yeah, center field would be the toughest and be the weakest as well. And you could put Newt in center, or excuse me, or you could put Tyler in center as well, and then that's where Jordan Walker would come in to play, like maybe right field or whatever.
You
But
could
I was
put
going
him
to
in
say that.
right, and then I was going to say put Newt either probably in left. If you want to put Tyler O'Neill in center, you have to put Newton left and then put Jordan Walker in right.
Well, then you have to worry about somebody like, and I know that he's not great defensively. He's serviceable, but then you've got a Juan Yepes. And, you don't know. Maybe you could put Jordan Walker in left and have Brendan Donovan play right. You move Edmund to second and you have DeYoung at short. I mean,
Well, see, and that brings up my next point that Parker brought up. Is Paul DeYoung gone? We talk about the infield and who's on this team. First off, I'm going to say it right now. Paul DeYoung is not trade bait. He has shown no sign of him being, and I hate saying it like this because I feel like it's coming off as a personal attack, and it's not, because we've seen him as a very nice person. But as far as a player goes, especially the past 2 years, he's had too many injuries, and his production has been beyond subpar. You cannot expect to be traded for anything worthwhile when you're hitting on average 150. It's not going to happen.
And his salary is already a sunken cost. That money's gone. That money's spent. So, I mean, maybe you keep him around, and maybe Matt Holliday can help figure out that swing. I mean, so I don't. I mean, with that money already being spent, unless you can get somebody to take that contract, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and
Mo already made the comment. And Mo already made the comment that he's going to have every chance in spring training to make the team. He didn't say he would be your starting shortstop. He said to make the team.
And I think that's the biggest indicator of it all, And I think we all knew that DeYoung wasn't going to be the starting shortstop after his injury because his production just wasn't the same. And, Mo went into San Diego at these meetings, and they did, but it wasn't for just him. And I feel like what's going to happen is the deal, Eddie, is going to be they're going to have guys that the Cardinals are not willing to give up. You're not going to be getting Mason Wynn or Jordan Walker or any of these guys. Or the only player like Liberatore is a good target to get. You want to get a DeYoung Liberatore deal, maybe give up another arm in the bullpen. Maybe that's serviceable, but you're not going to get up any of these guys that were in the Cardinals farm system that were as highly touted and ranked as they have been in all the magazines and prospect digests out there. Now, Mo went into San Diego with these winter meetings with only one thing on his mind, a catcher. He went in there because he knew it goes without saying that for the past 8 years, for the past 8 or 10 years, you have no idea what's going to happen to catcher when Yadi's gone. Because it was about 8, and that's the thing. It's like Yadi's gone. Holy hell, who's going to be the replacement? So you go through all these possible ideas, free agencies come and pass, trade deadlines come and pass, and finally, the timing is perfect. You get the offseason after Yadier Molina had announced his retirement. He announces it at the beginning of the year, so it gives you plenty of time to start eyeing around. Contreras didn't get dealt at the deadline, but he also did not resign. So he hits free agency. Now, there was a lot of talk about Sean Murphy going to the Cardinals. That didn't end up happening.
So I do know with the Sean Murphy deal that the A's were asking for too many high prospects. So apparently with Sean Murphy, and this isn't just the Cardinals that have been inquiring about him, but the price that Oakland was asking for was just too high, and that's why Murphy hasn't moved yet. I did just, in terms of with a good source in terms of the shortstop market, apparently the Braves have kind of cut off communications with Dansby Swanson and his agent right now. As of right now, this coming out of San Diego. So I don't know if the Braves just maybe they're just out. They do have what is it? I guess they have another shortstop behind him that can play, but apparently coming out of San Diego, they're just saying that right now that the Braves and Dansby Swanson's agent and representative are no longer talking. So that may push it off the deep end in terms of that Dansby Swanson doesn't return to Atlanta.
Yeah, I definitely, and it's been looking like that more and more, but that breaking news definitely is probably the biggest indicator of it. And there's multiple teams. It's not just the Cardinals that have inquired about it. John Morosi was the first person to break on the report that the Cardinals were inquiring about Swanson. Um, but I think the biggest thing is, you know, he is a huge piece. The Atlanta Braves have one of the best teams in the National League. Losing Swanson a year removed from losing Freddie Freeman is going to be a big hit to that team. At least in my personal viewpoint. And I feel like there's so many other teams, especially in the National League, that have their eyes on him. He's going to a National League team. That's how I look at it. Where I don't know, very well could be the Cardinals. Like I said, the Cardinals are not done with their offseason. It's just a matter of what they decide is a more top priority. That being, do they want to prioritize getting another pitcher to fill in Quintana's absence? Because honestly, and Eddie bring up a great question. I say Dansby Swanson. I would love to see Swanson. Who do you want us to have a shortstop next year? I think entering opening day, he would be the ideal candidate if the price is right. Obviously, I'm not giving up the farm. But look, this is the funny thing about the Cardinals. The biggest issue with the Cardinals has always been it's not that we don't have the money. We're just not willing to spend the money.
Right.
Well, we just got a complete steal on Swanson, or I'm sorry, on Contreras. We can go out and get a little more for Swanson. And James Mox got this one specifically for you on if we were to get Swanson, or if another team wants, what do you feel for a guy in, his position? And Dansby Swanson, let's keep in mind, he is 28 years old, and he's 255 career hitter, but he's an all-star last year, so he's really coming into his own. What would be the ideal contract length for a guy like Swanson?
So it depends. And the reason I say this is because Dansby Swanson could be the shortstop once all the chairs are taken and the shortstops are playing musical chairs, because you still have Correa, Bogarts, and Swanson out on the market. So I could see Swanson and his representatives in his camp, signing a 1-year prove it deal and then maybe resetting the market for himself. However, if he doesn't do that, if I'm the Cardinals, I look at maybe a 3-year deal with an option for a 4th year, and here's why. Because I don't want to block Mason Wynn. And I know that you're looking, I don't think Mason Wynn would be up in 2023, maybe 2024, but I don't want to block him. And that's why I said if you could get Swanson for like a 1-year prove it deal and have him reset the market, then you don't have to worry about blocking Mason Wynn. So if I'm any other team, with him being still in his late 20s, maybe you go for a 5-year deal, at $17-18 million. I would say 5 years, $90 million for him. And then, it gives him a chance, if he produces in those 5 years, to kind of hit free agency one more time in his early to mid 30s and see if, he can, get another decent deal out of it. So I think 5 for 90 is a really good deal for him. Matter of fact, I would almost think it's a steal. I think there are a lot of shortstops are going to go for, obviously I think Carlos Correa is looking for that $20 million a year plateau. And somebody like Xander Bogaerts, who by all rights seems like a great teammate. But again, as I said earlier, if you're playing this game, you're looking to maximize your earnings at any point. And so, I'm sure he's going to want to get to that 20 million plateau as well. I could see Dansby Swanson being that shortstop that is $15 to $18 million. That doesn't mean that he's not as good of a player. I just think that the market for Dansby was kind of set a little lower in terms of what you're looking at for a starting shortstop in free agency.
And then you look into the fact that, excuse me, back on Monday, Trey Turner signed
Good Lord.
and the 29-year-old Trey Turner, one of the top shortstops in baseball. We're not going to argue that.
Would have loved to have him.
Would have loved to have had him, but an 11-year, $300 million deal with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, Phillies, without a doubt, biggest underdog in baseball. Nobody expected them to go where they did. Nobody expected them to make the World Series. Hell, nobody expected them to make the playoffs.
Right.
But here they go, and you take a look at a lineup that now has Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, Reese Hopkins, Bryce Harper. I mean, holy hell, this guy is set. And, there's a full no trade clause and there's no deferred money. And he is the 10th 300 million plus contract in baseball history. Now there's 3 other shortstops in history to have made that mark, and that's Francisco Lindor on the Mets, Fernando Tatis Jr. on the Padres, and I'm sure they're kind of kicking themselves on that one right now. And then on the Rangers, Corey Seager. Turner was one of the biggest talked about players in the entire free agency pool heading into the winter meetings. A lot of teams were in on him, and the Phillies, it kind of just came out of the blue. And so they get him, and you talk about setting the bar. If you get a contract where, okay, we take, oh, shoot, excuse me. I got to do this for a second. Okay, so Trey Turner's going to be getting paid about $27 million a year over the course of that contract. And you had mentioned, 5 years, $90 million for Dansby Swanson would be ideal for you?
Yep.
I mean, hell, I'm not going to act like the gap between the talent that Turner and Swanson have are so far apart. It's actually pretty close. So to get somebody that's almost near that same level with $210 million saved, I wouldn't argue that. And I hope that's something the Cardinals understand. Now, do we think that's guaranteed they're going to be able to get Dansby Swanson for 5 years, $90 million? Probably not. I would be hard-pressed to see them being able to get him for anything less than 100.
It's probably going to be 5 years, 180.
Right.
I think that's what he's probably going to set. But
because the shortstop market has become the most expensive market. And the pitcher market to me is second place as far as expensive markets, but the shortstop one, and it's amazing that it's become that because you wouldn't expect it, but it's become so high priced because now it's not even as much about the defense as much as it is about the offense. I mean, these are some true sluggers you got at the shortstop position. Now we also have an interesting one where And that was really the big move that set off everything.
Yeah.
That was the big one. As far as that goes, then you have the Guardians, and then we're going to get right back to the Cardinals, Eddie, so hang in there. But the Guardians signed Josh Bell to a 2-year, $33 million deal. There is an opt-out clause in there as well. So, I mean, and Cleveland was another team that really, they were on the verge of going to the American League Championship Series. So, and they had the record. I think they started 16 different rookies last year.
Yep.
So you add a proven veteran on there around a bunch of young guns. So there's been a lot of good moves so far. Now to go back to Eddie's comment. Eddie, thank you so much for tuning in and sending us all your comments. And folks, please do not hesitate to send us your comments, questions. We'll do our best to get them on air. You look at the lineup on the Cardinals we got right now, James. There is so much talent. And now with the addition of Contreras, what's the lineup looking like?
Okay, so I've actually been thinking about this today. My leadoff hitter playing second base would be Brendan Donovan. Hitting second would be Paul Goldschmidt. Hitting third would be Wilson Contreras. Hitting fourth would be Nolan Arenado. Hitting fifth, playing left field, would be Tyler O'Neill. Hitting sixth, playing center, would be Dylan Carlson. See, I'm trying to remember where I've got. Okay, so I need a DH and 2 more outfielders. So my DH Oh man, that's a tough one. Uh, and this is barring they don't do any. I guess my DH would be Nolan Gorman, and then I would go Newt Barr, and then my nine hitter would be Tommy Edman. I think Brendan Donovan gets on at a very high clip, base on base percentage wise. You put Tommy Edman in the nine hole. We saw him produce there last year. Plus, it gives you that second leadoff hitter, uh, you know, idea when you come around the lineup. Plus, you want protection for Goldie and Arenado. And I think putting Wilson Contreras right there in the middle of the lineup, helps with that. Because now you're looking at, well, you've got generally your best hitter is second. You've got Goldie, so he's being protected by Contreras there. And then you've got Contreras up. And if you make a mistake to him or you don't want to pitch to him, well, guess who's behind him in Nolan Arenado? So you have that as well. The other option I've thought about too is kind of doing something that Tony La Russa did with Albert Pujols and Chris Duncan. When Duncan struggled, he would put Dunk in the two hole in front of Albert because Albert would protect him, which means Chris Duncan would see more pitches to hit. Jordan Walker, and I'll knock out two questions here at the same time. Parker asked when Jordan Walker makes it to the show. That'll be this year. He's going to be given every chance in spring training to make the team. The other thing is you could put Jordan Walker in the two hole and then slide Goldie, Contreras, and Arenado down. So you've got the MVP protecting your high-priced, your high possession or, coveted rookie in the two hole. And then you've got, Contreras protecting Goldie and et cetera down the line. So, I mean, look, it is a very tough lineup to pitch to because you're going to, as a pitcher that's on the bump and you're looking at, you're like, damn, where are my outs going to be at? So, and it's been a long time since the Cardinals have had a lineup constructed like that to where there aren't very many holes. Now, that doesn't mean that these guys aren't going to struggle at times. Everybody slumps. It's 162 games. We saw that with Goldie. He's been notorious for being a slow starter. And then, this year he hit in every month except for, unfortunately, September and October. Right. But, I mean, I just think, and this is without adding anybody else. And I really will sit here just because, just trust me, I don't think the Cardinals are done.
So I look at the lineup that you had mentioned, and I take the spots of Goldie, Contreras, and Arenado. Last year combined, they hit 87 home runs. That is insane to think about because, most of, if not all of last year, what was the most common factor when it came to Goldschmidt? It was to have Arenado play behind him. And I always felt that was an issue because you put the two biggest offensive producers, not named Albert Pujols, right next to each other in the lineup. Well, say Paul Goldschmidt hits a big time home run. Say, Donovan scores and say Tommy Edman, who's in the 9-hole, scores. Well, there's nobody in front of Arenado. To me, you always need to have the protection around your best players. You always need guys that get on base. Whitey Herzog was famous for that. He would have all these guys. That's why part of the Whitey ball strategy, it wasn't just about fast defense. It was also about getting guys that can get on base. And then when you have, a guy like Jack Clark up to bat, you would use him to be the power driving force to get them home. But the main thing was getting the guys on base.
So I've got some more breaking news here in terms of the shortstop market. This is from John Paul Morosi, JP Morosi. The Giants have spoken and met with Carlos Correa's representatives about the free agent shortstop, and apparently now the Giants are being linked to Correa. So I would expect if this is going to materialize as quickly as they're saying, that Carlos Correa, by the end of this week, will be a San Francisco Giant.
Whew. It's interesting that you bring that up because now you take a look at the Giants being able to save all that money. Now, don't get me wrong; it's not like they couldn't. It's not. And they also said, use Judge.
Remember, they signed Mitch Haniger as well, so they're trying to boost the middle of their lineup. I
was going to say, I believe, and I wish I could remember how much. They signed him to a 3-year, $43.5 million contract.
Yeah.
So you look at the Giants, And they missed out on Judge, who everybody thought was the favorite where he was the favorite to go to. But San Francisco, the past couple years, has been an anomaly of a team. They were predicted not too long ago to lose over 100 games, and they end up winning 108.
Yep.
So this team goes out there and they fight till the end, and now they got themselves a really talented outfielder in Mitch Hanger. They got themselves, now there's the possibility you had mentioned about Carlos Correa, who, look, make whatever jokes you want about him and cheating in Houston and whatnot. The guy has talent and a lot of it.
Well, apparently the Giants want to shop at the Dior store and bring him in.
Yeah. So, and then you take a look at,
hang on. Apparently the Twins are also interested in trading and are listening to offers on AL batting leader Luis Urias. So the Twins are looking at moving another middle infielder. So Urias can play short. He can play second. He played the majority of his games at second base last year. This is crazy to think that you're going to add another player. Now, he hit .316 last year. Now, that doesn't tell you where the state of baseball is in terms of being a league batting champion and hitting .316. That would have been a down year for Tony Gwynn. But Luis Urias now, the Twins are fielding offers for him as well. Boy, I'll tell you what, he's not going to blow you away in terms of name recognition, but I wouldn't mind having him on this Cardinal team.
It's interesting that you mentioned about Luis Urias. So Tony Gwynn basically struck out the way Larry Fitzgerald dropped passes.
Right.
And only multi-sport athletic fans would know that reference. So we also have news that I was able to get a report on just a couple days ago. Actually, this was just yesterday, that the Kansas City Royals were able to avoid arbitration with Alberto Mondesi. He'll be paid. Mondesi will be paid $3.04 million in 2023. Now,
it's a good deal. I was going to say it's a good deal.
But the problem is
Alberto Mondesi is a really good ball player.
His injury history.
I was going to say he's a great ball player, but he just can't stay healthy.
Like in 2019, he played in 102 games. That is a career high for him. And he's only appeared in 60 games or more in 2018 and 2019. But the thing of it is, and he after just 15 games last year, he tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Talent is not the issue with him. It is the ability to stay on the field. It's injuries. And when you're a rebuilding organization, you finally get rid of Mike Matheny. More importantly, you finally get rid of Cal Eldred. You finally have yourself new management, new ownership for the Royals, and you're really trying to make moves in the American League Central. And they got so many young, talented players. You got Nicky Lopez, you got Bobby Witt Jr., you got Michael Massey, Nate Eaton, Mikael Garcia. I mean, these are some talented guys. And Alberto Mondesi is one of these guys. But at the same time, if you can't stay healthy, don't be surprised if you don't even make it to the team past this upcoming season.
Apparently, the Boston Red Sox are fielding calls about starting pitcher Nick Pivetta as well. I'll tell you, I don't know what to make of them. I'm sitting here, obviously, you keep seeing me glance over. MLB Tonight is on, and just kind of reading some of the stuff that's going across the screen and who they're talking about. Nick Pivetta would be an arm to look into as well. Unfortunately, here's the thing. The Cardinals were able to sign Wilson Contreras today, and it only cost them money. I don't think the Cardinals want to part with their prospects, and to get a guy like Pivetta, you're going to have to make a trade. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, Jeremy and I were kind of joking around about the fact that the Red Sox signed Masataka Yoshida to a 5-year, $90 million deal prior to the show. And I was like, he must be a pitcher. And then we, of course, looked it up, and he's an outfielder. I'm just not sure what to make of what some teams are trying to do, and the Red Sox would be one of those teams. I mean, I get it. You've got the Yankees in that division. You've got the Blue Jays who are strong offensively. You've got a team like the Orioles who really the only thing they're missing is starting pitching.
They
Because
sold, and they were winning.
I know.
That's the interesting thing.
Well, and the thing about the Orioles is I would love to have, if you wanted a left-handed or a switch hitting outfielder, I'd love to have it. Santander from the Orioles. I love the way he plays the game, but again, that's going to cost you most likely major league ready pitching. And the Cardinals don't have, high level pitching that they can part with. They need guys, but they're not willing to, they don't have any that you could trade unless, the Orioles be willing to take somebody like a Matthew Liberatore and send Paul DeYoung with them and maybe get a guy like Santander. I like the way,
The
I mean,
Doritos.
I'd love to have Cedric Mullins if that was the case, but
So
there's such a long way to go in free agency, and this is going to be really fun to watch. Right now, obviously, the Cardinals have to be the front runner of the division because Milwaukee's selling pieces off. Colton Wong ends up in Seattle. We didn't even talk about that. He ends up in Seattle. The Reds aren't. I mean, they're not making any moves. The Pirates are the Pirates. They haven't been good since We Are Family and Willie Stargell back in '79. And then you've got here, the Cardinals and the Cubs. And the Cubs go out and get Cody Bellinger. They were linked to Carlos Correa, but now the favorite to land Correa is the Giants. So I wonder, and I'll leave it on this, is I wonder if the Cardinals really go out and make any more big moves because I don't think they're going to have to. I think it's just small little puzzle pieces here and there to finish the puzzle.
the problem is if you stop, if you think you are done, you're not. That is the problem. The Cardinals, they may say, if they say they're done, because like you said, this is so early. The winter meeting has just started. You got so much more free agency to go. You got all of next year basically, because basically the next big thing that ends would be when spring training begins, and you have to start looking at who do you feel would make the team. And Mark Bowman reported that the Cubs, Cardinals, Twins, and Red Sox are the 4 teams that have shown the most interest in Dansby Swanson. And you had mentioned earlier reporting about how Atlanta has basically cut off their communication lines with Swanson and his agent.
Yep.
So, that opens up a whole new thing. Colton Wong going to I'm surprised Milwaukee's not on there because Colton Wong shifts off the whole infield. Colton Wong was really doing well in Milwaukee.
They're trying to cut salary. It's a money thing for them.
It's a money thing, but now it's also a talent thing because now,
Milwaukee who gives a damn? I hope they stay bad.
Well, yeah, I hope they do too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, seeing, the Brewers play as bad as they did the second half of the season was enjoyable. My thing of it is, I don't want the struggles of the rest of the division to lead to the Cardinals slacking off.
Being complacent, yeah.
And being complacent. The worst thing you can do is be satisfied.
I understand that.
That is probably the worst thing you can do. That's the problem. And that's something that the Cardinals have been notorious for in the past. When they got Jason Hayward, they felt that was what they needed, and they felt that was fine. When they got Dexter Fowler, they felt that was the guy they needed and that they were fine. I mean, these types of moves, Wilson Contreras, I cannot express enough how crucial this signing is for the team. It's a very big signing, because he's a multi-time All-Star. He's a great hitter. He's definitely hit a lot better over the past few years than Molina did.
Yeah.
You will never find another defensive catcher like Yadier Molina again. But the thing of it is, you don't have to. Because even if you go 1 or 2 levels down, that's still an elite level.
Well, and here's the other thing that you make a very good point. Here's the other thing that kind of lends me to believe that is, if you believe what you hear in the fact that an automated strike zone is coming 2 or 3 years down the road, pitch framing isn't as important. And he still has the arm to throw. I can't even think about whatever. Anyway, that automated pitch stuff gets on my nerves. But, you don't have to worry about pitch framing or whatnot. You just have to worry about throwing runners out. Well, he's got a cannon and he's got a great pop time So what do we have here from what I've
I
seen?
love this point. This is perfect because let me tell you something. What happened in 2004 and 2005 when they had the best teams in baseball,
They
the
got beat.
absolute odds-on favorites
They got beat.
to win it all. They
They got
got
beat.
beat and they got beat bad. They got swept in the World Series and they lost bad in the NLCS the
To
next
the
year.
Astros. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason that series is notable for the Cardinals' sake is because Pujols launched a home run ball that's still in the moon, and
Yeah.
that ended Brad Lidge's career,
Pretty
basically.
much. Pretty much.
So, but you know what? Mock also brings up a great point because, 2006, they were so hampered with injuries, but then look what happens. They win the World Series.
They were
Um,
terrible.
yeah, absolutely god awful. I think it's the worst record by a World Series winning team.
It is. It is.
And because I forget which team it was that had an 82, and there was a one record below it. There was a team record below it that was the worst for a team that was in the World Series.
Yeah.
But the Cardinals had the worst as winning, But the Cardinals, and I also think it just comes down to the fact that they're one of the most historic franchises in sports. So the expectation is so high. And Parker, this is why we love having him as a sports historian because it's the 1973 Mets. And, you go up there, and now that they got Contreras, all of a sudden the expectations are sky high. You're getting Flaherty back. Wainwright's who, aside from some rough outings, had a really good year last year. Michaelis had a really good year last year. He ate up innings like no other starter in the Cardinals besides Wainwright. But there's a lot of question marks this team still has. And, I do understand that. I think we've gotten our hopes up too high in the past. And I feel like by doing that, what's going to happen is, John Mozeliak is going to once again be like, yeah, we're good with who we at. We're good with where we're at. I think they're going to rely too much on who they have developed and hope that that's going to be all they need.
Well,
And
here's what I'll say, and I've seen this a lot today, and it's irritated me and it's frustrated me, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to just flat out, I'm going to call out Cardinal fans. Cardinal fans quit being stupid. Just because you're making me dizzy over here, Jeremy.
I'm working on it.
The idea of being is that it's frustrating because Cardinal fans ultimately they're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? Don't expect another big move. Just don't. And it's not because you will actually pay all of Nolan Arenado's salary this year. It's not because you've got Goldie and you've got Arenado and you've got Wilson Contreras. You've got a lot of salary tied up there. It's the idea that if you want another big player free agency wise, who do you want? You want somebody like Will Myers? You want somebody like Andrew Benintendi? You want, you want a Michael Conforto? Yeah, sure. They're all left-handed hitters. But do they really make your team much better than what you have now? Benintendi was great with the Royals, and then he got traded to the Yankees. He was serviceable. He wasn't great. Will Myers was great 3 years ago. Michael Conforto was injured all of last year. Scott Boras claims that he's got a ton of suitors that for him. Don't be surprised if not another big move is made. It's going to be small pieces. And I know that, the Cardinals don't spend and Mo doesn't do this. He went out and got you a catcher, and he got him at a steal. Mo said that the salary would go up. He didn't say by how much. Don't be surprised if you don't get another big move. I mean, the Cardinals incrementally improved their offense today. Don't be that person. Cardinal fans are spoiled. They act like they're entitled. And you have to be realistic. When it comes down to it, it's still a business. There are also other teams out there that are vying for these free agents. There are also other teams out there that you have to meet their trade needs. Be realistic. Those guys, they get paid to play the game too. And the biggest thing is just because you're in a free agent market and you're looking at a player, understand he has to want to come to St. Louis as well. You got to be realistic about this stuff.
Very honestly well said. Um, with that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in this evening with Roundabout Sports. I'm the maestro Jeremy Carper alongside Hollywood of Christmas past James Knox, who definitely has
I'm
a lot under his hot stove, I
I'm
tell
I'm
you.
I'm Ebenezer Scrooge right now to a lot of Cardinal fans.
Yeah, but I totally understand.
Like Bob Cratchit.
Oh, jeez. One quick random thought that I saw earlier before we move on to the NFL. Um, Cole Hamels wants to make a pitching return in 2023. He's 38 years old. Cardinals haven't strayed away from signing 38-year-old pitchers over the past couple seasons, and they've been very well in their roles. Do you give him a shot?
I mean, I would think that because it's been since 2020 since he's pitched, that he's probably going to do one of those things where he goes and, kind of shows everybody what he's got, kind of throws. It's almost like a pro day, for players coming out of college into the NFL. If he looks good, hell, why not?
All right. Just had a. I mean, obviously, I'd be the one to support that. I'm always a
I
fan of those
right, and
veterans players.
and I saw it earlier here, and I was going to bring it up, and I'm like, well, but it worked with Quintana. After a while, it worked with John Lester. I mean,
J.A.
why
Happ,
not? Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah,
we don't make the playoffs. This is why I'm going to leave this talk on. We don't make the playoffs without John Lester and J.A. Happ.
you are correct, hands down. I mean, it's
that
plus he's left-handed.
Exactly, and that's going to be the biggest need.
I mean, hell, Jamie Moyer pitched effectively until he was 50.
Yeah, exactly. God love him. Alrighty, we are transitioning now, folks, to the wonderful world of the National Football League, the No Fun League. At one point, the No Fans League because of COVID. But that said, it is time to delve into America's. Is it their? It's not their pastime.
No, baseball is.
Baseball is. That's right. Well, then, what would football be? Their prime time?
Prime time.
So, well, speaking of prime time, I'm going to tell you this right now.
Bobby goes 2-10.
Oh, geez. Well, you take a look at, speaking of teams that are practically 2-10, excuse me, the Denver Broncos. So they say let Russ cook. Russ hasn't even entered the damn kitchen.
He burned the damn kitchen down.
No, never let Russ cook again. If anything, Russ needs to be charged with robbery and be put in the same robbery jail cell as Sam Bradford when it comes to taking money from football teams. I mean, the Denver Broncos, and I don't know if I've might have said this to you, and I might have said it last week, but I'm going to say it again. The Denver Broncos have the second worst points per game average over the past 30 years. The only team worse than them, the 2000 Cleveland Browns. And guess what? That was their second year in the league after coming back, and Tim Couch was their starting quarterback. So, they have a reason to not play good. Meanwhile, Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos, once again, 10 times this year, they have not scored 17 or more points. It's efforts like that got Matt Rule fired in Carolina.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Broncos could have taken such advantage of Lamar Jackson getting injured and Tyler Huntley having to come in. And what did they do? They shat the bed. Meanwhile, and they lose 10-9. Meanwhile, another AFC North versus AFC West matchup, the Cincinnati Bengals. And what was one of the most intense, crazy games. You know what? I discovered this. The Kansas City Chiefs apparently had an 18-game winning streak or whatever in November and December, or a 26-game win. I don't know what it was. It was something around there. And it snapped because, this is also the Chiefs have not beaten the Bengals in Cincinnati since the first term of Ronald Reagan.
Sam Weish was the coach.
I mean, let's really think about this. So it begs the question, since there was a lot of controversial calls. I think the biggest one, and yeah, Jack's history, thank you so much for tuning in. Russ is definitely among the worst. I don't know if I would go as far as to say the worst, but
I don't know, man. He looked
I'm
pretty bad.
definitely because I'm not gonna lie, Davis Mills or Kyle Allen. I mean,
And neither one of them are better than Russell. I'm kind of with Jag's history here. I went back and watched the all 22 of that game. Why? I have no clue because I have no life. But I went back and watched the all 22 on that game just because I was trying to figure out how the hell Russell Wilson how they don't win that game. And man, he was
I can think of
bad.
a reason.
He looked, we talked, I think it was one of our like first or second episodes of the new season. And we talked about like on Madden and how your quarterback got hurt and you had to have like a 62 or a 63 rated quarterback leading your team.
Yeah.
Like that's what Russell Wilson looked like on some of these throws. Like how how?
Well, this is another interesting stat I found. Jamal Williams of the Detroit Lions has 14 rushing touchdowns. Meanwhile, the entire Denver Broncos offense has 14 touchdowns.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
So I'm like, wait a minute, huh? So yeah, no, they're definitely Russ is definitely at the bottom of the barrel.
I think what we're seeing out of this is it wasn't any of the coaching issues, and it wasn't Pete Carroll's issue in Seattle. It was Russell Wilson. Because look at what Seattle's doing now with Geno Smith. Now, the Rams almost upset Geno Smith and the Seahawks, if not for the touchdown pass.
It's amazing having to think that was an upset if they would
right.
Right.
But he finds DK Metcalf with 36 seconds left in the game to win that game. They literally had to come out and win it that way. But still, nonetheless, we're seeing what Geno Smith is able to do under Pete Carroll's tutelage and his scheme. This isn't Russell Wilson like, oh well, it's the coaching, it's this and that. No. It's I saw that. But
that's funny. That is hilarious right there.
I think the other thing you have to look at too is like who Zach Wilson and Baker Mayfield have been throwing to. I mean, the Seahawks do have a pretty damn good wide receiver core when it comes down to it.
The Jets have a pretty good wide receiver core too. It's about how much you make of it. Garrett Wilson's a great, rookie. I mean, he's probably the best rookie receiver right now if it weren't for the fact if Jameson Williams wasn't out all this damn time.
Right.
Corey Davis, proven veteran. Elijah Moore, I'm going to say right now, a lot more talent than he's gotten the shot for.
He's played better. He's played better with Mike White as his quarterback.
Right. So it's the thing of it is, and now then you look at Baker. Obviously, when he leaves, he's traded from Cleveland to Carolina. You got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and
then they have the issues with Robbie Anderson, and he's gone mid-season too.
Right. So basically, DJ Moore is your one true guy.
Right.
And then Christian McCaffrey's gone. So there goes your dump-off pass guy. And meanwhile, Christian McCaffrey is now having to deal with another quarterback situation because Jimmy Garoppolo broke his foot, and it's not. Yeah, Brock Purdy is the starter going forward, and what a lot of people did believe that they were going to go for Baker, but the thing of it is, the Rams had a higher waiver claim. Now about the Jimmy G situation, they said he's actually has a chance to come back, but this is my thing. I mean, by the time he comes back, it'll be Super Bowl week. Yep. So this is implying the 49ers make the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not gonna sit here about, oh, they're gonna make it or they're not gonna make it, but I will say this much. I mean, that's a high gamble right now.
I agree. And they did come out and say today that he was able to escape the Liz Frank injury, which is huge because we've seen that kill an athlete's career. Hell, it killed Alan Craig. If you remember the foot injury in Cincinnati, that was a Liz Frank injury, and it killed his career. So, but you're right. They said it would be deep in the playoffs. You're right. Unless you are just planning on Brock Purdy being able to, be a game manager and don't lose it. I mean, that's a hell of a gamble to take. But I will say this much: the NFC is down this year, and maybe other than Dallas, Philadelphia, all due respect to Minnesota, I don't even know if I put them as a threat. I mean, I guess they could be at any given game because of the weapons they have.
I put them as resilient. I mean, these guys do not give up.
And Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen can go off at any given time. So
Justin Jefferson's a freaking nature. I love it.
he
Uh,
really is, and he reminds me a lot of Michael Thomas when he started his career with the Saints. He's a
can,
deep threat. He's a great route runner, and he's got good like cuts. He's in and out of cuts really well as well. So
could we imagine that there was at one point in time a starting offense that was led by Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Justin Jefferson?
I freaking dealt with it because he played in the fucking SEC.
Yeah, what was that team they beat? No.
The team that didn't make the top 4 in the playoff, and you tell me that a 2-loss Alabama is not better than a 1-loss TCU, and kiss my ass.
Guess what? 1-loss TCU is better than a 2-loss Alabama.
Okay. Yeah, because if TCU played in the SEC, they'd lose 3 or 4 games a year. If Alabama played in the Big 12 and didn't have to play the damn defense to be undefeated.
Look, it is hard for me to feel bad for Alabama when teams they play on average are named the Citadel, Montana Springs Community College, and Duke. Get that shit out of here. Okay. Don't even play that card.
Because we played at Texas this year and beat them. And we play every team in the SEC. Let's see, who else did we play this year? And without those games against the Citadel and those other teams, those football programs don't survive. You said I got to worry about Missouri getting beat by the Sisters of the freaking Blind.
Oh God, yeah. So you got your lovely and then anyway. Of course, well, I'll tell you this: one way or another, next season Notre Dame's going to be starting in number 4 in the preseason rankings, like they always do, and somehow find a way to fizzle out because why not? But
hang on about that LSU team that you were talking about before I went off my rank.
Definitely.
That's the same team that put up 63 points on Ohio State. I mean, that team was electric.
One of the greatest college offenses.
That Clyde Edwards-Helaire didn't even play in that national championship game because he had an ankle injury.
Exactly, and that's the crazy thing. Like, we're talking about key offensive playmakers' impacts in the NFL.
Sorry.
That
comment down there, that Jack's history saying Dion will lead Colorado to be a national or to be a championship.
Oh, no. Okay.
Because he's already named his son as the starting quarterback? Yeah. Come on.
You know what? After I make this quick point, I'd really like to ask your opinion on that whole thing, because that is something that...
He's in Colorado. He's obviously high.
Right. Well, what I was going to say is, and see, now I almost lost my train of thought. Okay. It was about the putting the Vikings on the tier of teams like the Eagles and the Cowboys. I put them up there because you look at the resiliency of them. They are a team that just knows how to make it interesting. That's all. Because, look at this. They may be down, they may be up 20 points at one point in the game. Then they're down 10 points. But at the end of the game, they win. Right. They're 10-2, and at the end of the day, 10-2 is all that matters. Yeah. Nobody expected them to be the team that can clinch the NFC North in Week 14. Yep. They win and the Lions lose. The division's theirs, and that's even crazier to think about. That the Lions that the team that they need to lose isn't the Packers; it's the Lions.
Right.
The Bears are officially eliminated. The Packers are practically eliminated. The only reason the Packers aren't eliminated is because Aaron Rodgers owns stock in the Chicago Bears organization because he owns them. And so you take a look at Detroit. Detroit. I've said this many times on the show. One of the most fun teams to watch in the league. One of the most fun teams to watch. And now they get Jameson Williams back, a receiver I've been so high on this entire season, even though he hasn't played yet up until recently. I'm excited. Jared Goff is better than people give him credit for, damn it, and I would stay on that.
Hey, he took my Rams to the Super Bowl. You're not going to get any argument from me. I love Jared Goff. I told you. I've got a Jared Goff jersey. One of the throwbacks in there. Look, you're not going to get any pushback from me. I love Jared Goff. I want them to do well. Did I expect him to put up 40 points on Jacksonville? No. But that just shows you, hey, Dan Campbell's got that team in the right direction. Hell, I'd run through a wall for Dan Campbell at this point.
Exactly.
Or bite some kneecaps.
So I want to definitely go to the point in regards to Deion Sanders.
Yeah,
This is my
Mm-mm.
thing. He's leaving Jackson State. He's taking half the damn team with him, and he's going to coach at Colorado. I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with him leaving. I have a problem with everybody else leaving. I have a problem that he's basically, and see, this is the thing. He basically fired the whole team, and he told them that the players, like this is the issue I have.
Yeah.
That's not the time. And first off, when you're going from an HBCU, to Colorado,
A Power Five school. Yeah.
Power Five school, I don't know about how it affects the education transfers because this is something that happens a lot with like transfer credits. This is
Uh-huh.
something that happens when you go from one Power Five school to another Power Five school. So go to other different universities from an FCS school to a Power Five school. Not every school accepts every credit.
I was gonna say I had that
It's
problem.
not just about football, it's about the education that goes behind these guys. And you may say, oh, but they play football. Yeah, but I hate to break it to you, but it's something that you always need to have a backup.
There's a
You always
reason why they are called student athletes, and there's a reason why student is first.
exactly. They're not athletic. They're not athletic students. They are student athletes.
And not every kid's going to make it to the NFL either, and or the XFL or the USFL or the CFL or whatever. You end up like selling shoes at Payless. What you need to understand here. In my problem with Dion, I kind of do have a problem with him leaving Jackson State, and here's why:
Okay.
because he got that team, and he had the school bought in, he had the team bought in, and a lot of these kids went to school there because he was the head coach. That was the whole thing. And I get it. There's this aura around Dion. Well, I want to play for Dion, and Dion can help me get here and get me there or wherever. So you got kids that can't just up and afford to leave and transfer to Colorado or whatever. But then he goes to Colorado. He has this talk, pretty much fires his whole team, and things are going to change here. So if you need to get into the transfer portal, you do it now. Look, they first and foremost, the education is first. There may be football players there that are playing football there on a scholarship, but they're also at Colorado because there's a certain major that is there that is not offered at another school. I mean, look, I get it. You want to win. And unfortunately, this is the idea of the transfer portal and the NIL deals and everything else. So I've got a big high profile coach who, by the way, hasn't won shit yet, who comes in and says, I'm going to do this. And how are you going to tell the players' parents that they knew that they sucked as a football team? I hope he doesn't succeed there. I know this sounds terrible, and I may be one of the
Oof.
outliers. I hope he goes 2-10, 1-11. I hope the teams that he does play, I hope USC puts a whooping on that ass. I hope guys like Lincoln Riley, blow him up. I know that it's all about the superstar mentality and Dion this and Dion that, and then he names his son as his starting quarterback.
Nepotism.
A little bit, a little bit. I mean, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. Son, you're my quarterback. Well, I mean, what the hell does that say if you've got a player on your team that's better than your son, that it doesn't matter that, look, you may be able to throw the ball further, or maybe more accurate, or be able to, read a defense better, but you're not my son. I mean, this is the problem with that. I mean, we saw, I don't know. I mean, it would be the same as if you had another Power Five school that, you know, uh, I don't know. Ted Lasso would be a better coach at Colorado.
Oh, jeez.
That's funny.
Well, folks, once again, thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports. The Maestro Jeremy Carp here alongside Hollywood James Knox, the Scrooge of Christmas Current, because
Apparently.
he's definitely having himself
well, my question for you
right
is
about
this,
now.
Jeremy, why are the national media, they're eating this up? They love the fact that Dion's a coach. Is it just simply because he gives them something to talk about?
There's the thing of it is, for two reasons, and I really I didn't want to go there, but it's because, first off, he's leaving an HBCU.
Yeah.
That is a big part of it. A historically black college. The fact Deion Sanders, a guy who's of such high prominence in football, Hall of Famer, prime time, one of the greatest of all time. No one's ever going to argue that. But from leaving Jackson State, who has historically not been that great, now all of a sudden they went undefeated, had their best season, and now all of a sudden they're back on the map. They were on College game day, for crying out loud.
That's true.
And
that's the Dion effect.
Exactly. It's the Dion effect. So for him to just all of a sudden take this job at Colorado without seemingly any sense of an argument, and you want Santa to hang on. Jags history wants Santa to give the Jags a better defense for Christmas. Well, Santa already gave you guys the gift for Christmas, and it was Trevor Lawrence not suffering a season-ending injury. Because that was a nasty play.
Good point.
Consider that the Christmas gift, probably.
Yeah. There's your Christmas miracle.
There's Christmas miracle, if ever there was one. So I think that's why it's easy for the national media to stir up whatever pot they want to pull up, which is ironic because he's now in Colorado.
And that's where you're going. Well played, Jeremy.
Yeah, I love it. So we'll see how it all plays out, and we'll be keeping you posted. But James, I'm about to give you the floor because we talked last night after the Blues game, and to say that you were happy about them winning is actually not exactly how it was. So, folks, this is a little special section known as Knox's Corner because he's going to tell you exactly how he feels about what's been going on with the St. Louis Blues. Take it away, my friend.
Yeah. So the Blues are able to knock off the New York Islanders last night, 7-4 on the Isle. They scored 2 empty net goals. They have a 5-1 lead going in the third period. Yet things got hairy once again. And it ends up 5-4 before thankfully the Blues put in 2 empty netters to make it 7-4. I still don't understand why in the world we can sit here and I can tell you what's wrong with the team, but they can't see it or they don't fix it. So the goaltending has not been great, okay? Thomas Greiss and Jordan Bennington, to say the least, have faced firing squads. They're facing an average of 32.4 shots a game. That is way too much. This Blues team has never given up that on a consistent basis in the last 10 years. Generally, you're looking at somewhere between 25 and 27 shots a game against. Better than what you're facing now. The defensive pairings of Parayko and Leddy, Krug and Falk, and then Mikkola and whoever the hell they put with them, generally it's Robert Bortuzzo, have been terrible. Many times leaving guys alone all in front of the net. Well, it's hard to stop a guy when you've got 2-on-0, like happened in the third goal last night that the Blues gave up. So I sit here and wonder how we can see what's wrong with this team, but yet they can't see it themselves. Guys like Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas are out there scoring goals. They're working their tails off. Ryan O'Reilly last night jabbing away, finally knocks one in, on the rebound there. Just gritty, hard-nosed goals. This team is soft. There's no physical presence. Colton Parayko is 6'7", 6'8" on skates, but yet he's nothing but a big teddy bear and gets pushed around by any player wanting to score a goal in front of the net. Torrey Krug, I don't know what the Blues see in putting Krug and Falk together. They have not played well. When Falk is away from Krug, his numbers are much better. I don't understand it. I wonder numerous times if Craig Berube, the head coach of the Blues, have lost the ear in the locker room. Why have the Blues become more of a Jeff Fisher team instead of a hard-nosed team coached by a guy who used to beat guys' brains in on the ice for a living? But now we're just happy with, well, we'll get that fixed. If you're a St. Louis Rams fan at any point in time, you heard those words from Jeff Fisher quite a bit. The Blues haven't seemed to fix anything. Line combinations. I don't understand why Kyrou and Thomas and Buchnevich, or Kyrou and Shen, and put your left winger there of choice there. But it's time to get rid of Tarasenko because, yes, he scored a goal, and he scored a goal in 3 straight games. He's not playing defense. He's not playing a 200-foot game. Trade him. Do whatever you're going to do with O'Reilly. If you're going to re-sign him, re-sign him. If not, ship him away to start to shake this team up. Something has to give. Because, again, and I will leave it at this. This will be my parting shot. It's great that you can win games 7-4. The problem is when you're up 5-1 and you start to just let teams get back into games. You give them hope, you give them momentum, and ultimately you end up losing 5 of your last 7 games. And this is all on Doug Armstrong, because while he didn't re-sign Perron and he let Husso go, sure, whatever. The problem is not the player. Problem is when he let Perron go, the heart of this team went to Detroit as well. Figure it out or blow it up.
Perfect, James. I love to hear it. And I was going to say, now it's a good chance for you to exhale. And
watch, they'll come out and beat Winnipeg tomorrow night 4-2.
Look, I'll take the win, but at the same time, you have to be a convincing winner.
Well, you made the comment earlier, and it was perfect. It's great to win 6-7 games in a row to get back into playoff contention, but for the love of God, quit starting at the bottom to have to do it.
Yep, I remember. Yep, you should not have to be at the bottom to work your way up. And while you were in the middle of your lovely rant,
what do we got?
I got an interesting message, and this is basically a spoiler for next week. I got a message from the Urban Cowboy himself, Ricky Rodriguez, and he says, "I'll be there." Folks, for if you don't know, the Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez, is one of the top wrestlers in the Midwest, and he's a major star at Dynamo Pro Wrestling. In fact, he's the 2022 Dynamo Pro Ride on the River champion. Well, in our at the last Dynamo Pro show a couple weeks ago, he lost to Jack Gamble, and it definitely wasn't his best effort. And Ricky expressed that to himself, to the point where he's actually currently not even in the state. Hell, he's not even in the country. Ricky's in Mexico.
Okay.
And he's currently training because he has such high standards of himself, and he is such a man of great heart and talent that he is determined that when he gets back into the ring again, he's going to put his best damn performance on. But while he's training, he said he would love to be a guest for next week's show.
Right on.
So next week here, he'll be live via satellite, if you will, from Mexico.
From the headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut.
From the headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. Oh, God. Live, folks, next week on Roundabout Sports, we will have the Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez. And I'm telling you right now, folks, I am looking forward to it. So be sure to stay tuned for that one. And I'm glad he's hyped just as much. With that, another wonderful show in the books, as always, James, I tell you. And it is such a great pleasure to be able to do this with you every week. And I know your voice box is absolutely exhausted right now with all your rants that you've had to do tonight, but
my goodness,
they never go unnoticed or unlistened to. I'll tell you that much. And
I'm glad, because I feel like I blow a lot of hot air on a weekly basis. I really do.
You do, but it spreads around. Don't worry.
There you go.
But folks, definitely be sure to tune in on our YouTube channel, the Interstate 70 Sports Media. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and on Twitter at I-70 Sports Media. Don't worry, we haven't paid the $8 yet, but it'll be okay. You can also find myself on Twitter at JCarpSportsFan1. And you can find James on Twitter as well. James, care to share that?
That's at JCKnox80.
All right. And, we're both on Facebook as well. Roundabout Sports is on Facebook. Be sure to tune in and get all the latest updates, folks. And be sure to follow us and subscribe to us on interstate70sports.media. It doesn't cost to subscribe to the email list, so don't worry.
Yeah, no $8 here. Elon.
No $8 here. It's all free.
I got your blue check mark right here.
Yeah. Only blue is like the bubbles around the names. I want to tell you right now, folks, so as we close, I always put out the National Alliance on Mental Illness hotline. It's 1-800-950 NAMI, 1-800-950-NAMI. It's a wonderful organization that strives to bring about more attention to mental illnesses, things that James and I know all too well. And there are instances that cause a lot of issues for a lot of people out there in the world, and nobody should fight them alone. Also, as always, we have the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Be sure to dial 988. It used to be a longer number, but it's just 988 now. It's open 24/7, 365, 366 on a leap year. And understand that you are never alone in this world. Not only is there somebody out there who loves you and is willing to listen to you, and it just takes that phone call, but you can also be that phone call. You can also be that listener that could save someone else's life. So never hesitate to reach out to somebody. And I want to express my deepest condolences to the main attraction, Dion, on the passing of his father today. A lot of hearts and prayers go out to you, brother. You know we love you. So with all that, folks, I want to thank you so much for tuning in tonight and always. And we will see you here next week with the Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez. He's Hollywood James Knox. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading.